In the winter of 373 BCE, the earth shook in the Gulf of Corinth. When the shaking stopped and the sea retreated, one of Greece's most important cities was gone. Its temples, its markets, and thousands of its people vanished beneath the water. That city was Helike. For centuries, travelers told stories of its ruins visible under the waves. For some, it became a real-world Atlantis. For others, it was a warning that even powerful cities could be erased in a single night. Today, archaeology has uncovered much of Helike, but the story of its rise, destruction, and rediscovery it still reads like myth. Helike sat on the northern coast of Greece, near the Gulf of Corinth. By the 5th century BCE, it was the head of a league of 12 Achaean cities. This gave it both political clout and economic weight. Helike minted its own coins, one of the surest signs of power in ancient Greece. These coins often showed Poseidon, trident in hand, marking the city as his. Poseidon wasn't just a local symbol. Helike was famous across Greece as the center of his worship. Pilgrims traveled there to sacrifice at his temple. Even Greek colonies across the sea, in what is now known as Turkey, sent offerings. The city was prosperous. Farms inland grew olives and grain. Its position on the Gulf allowed trade by sea. Its political alliances meant influence across the region. In short, Helike was stable, wealthy, and proud. But its pride may have played into later legends. Some writers claim the city refused to share Poseidon's temple with Ionian colonists who asked for permission. Others said Helike had grown arrogant, and the god of the sea himself punished them. Whether true or not, the city's fate came with a cruel irony. Poseidon was the god of both the sea and earthquakes, the very forces that destroyed it. Ancient accounts describe what happened in chilling terms. Writers like Diodorus Siculus and Pausanias tell us that one winter night a violent earthquake struck. The earth split open, and buildings collapsed instantly. In the morning, Helike was gone. Where once stood temples and homes, there was now a shallow lagoon. Fishermen from neighboring towns said they could see rooftops and columns under the water. Some even claimed fish swam through the streets of the drowned city. Relief parties from other Greek cities rushed to help, but they found nothing to rescue, only water covering what had once been a capital. The dead could not be buried, the survivors were few. The timing is striking. Plato wrote about Atlantis in the years after Helike's destruction. Some scholars have suggested that stories of Helike may have shaped his thinking. Both tales involve cities swallowed by the sea after offending the gods. Both involve wealth, pride, and sudden ruin. Plato, of course, set Atlantis in the distant past, but for his readers, Helike was proof that such a disaster was possible. They didn't need a far-off legend, they had seen it happen in their own lifetime. Whether Plato borrowed from Helike or not, the city blurred the line between myth and history. It showed that great civilizations could indeed vanish in a single night. For centuries after 373 BCE, Helike remained part of Greek and Roman memory. Pausanias, writing in the 2nd century CE, more than 500 years later, still described seeing the ruins beneath the waves. Other travelers said the same. The story spread across the Mediterranean. To some, Helike was a cautionary tale about hubris before the gods. To others, it was just a marvel, a drowned city still visible below the surface. But over time, the lagoon silted up. The coastline shifted. Helike gradually disappeared, not just from sight, but from maps. By the Middle Ages, its location was forgotten. Only fragments of the story remained. Interest in Helike revived in the modern era. In the 19th century, scholars began to wonder whether the ruins still lay beneath the Gulf of Corinth. Explorers searched offshore with diving equipment and dredges, and they found little. The problem was that everyone assumed Helike had sunk deep into the sea, but the ancient texts kept mentioning a lagoon. It wasn't until the late 20th century that archaeologists took those clues seriously. In the 1980s, Greek archaeologist Dora Katsonopoulou led a new project. Her team combined ancient writings with geological surveys. They discovered that the coastline had shifted dramatically since antiquity. The drowned lagoon had eventually filled with silt, leaving farmland where there had once been sea. Excavations in the early 1990s finally revealed Helike. Pottery, streets, foundations, the remains of a once thriving city. Coins with Poseidon's image just as described. Even traces of the lagoon itself. Helike had not vanished into the deep gulf. It had been buried just a few meters under the soil, waiting for rediscovery. The ruins of Helike tell us about both the disaster and the life before it. Archaeologists have found evidence of sudden destruction, collapsed walls, shattered pottery, buildings twisted by seismic force. They've also mapped a city with planned streets, workshops, temples, and homes. Its coins confirm its role as a regional leader. Its cult of Poseidon matches the ancient accounts. Geologists studying the site also learned more about how earthquakes and tsunamis strike this part of Greece. The Gulf of Corinth sits on a fault system that remains active today. In fact, modern earthquakes in the region have destroyed villages in much the same way. Helike is both a history lesson and scientific warning. Helike's story matters for three reasons. First, it's a rare case where myth and history overlap. A city described as swallowed by the sea was proven to exist and proven to have been destroyed in just that way. It shows that disaster legends often have real cause. Secondly, it reminds us of nature's power. Civilizations rise, build monuments, mint coins, and then vanish when the ground shifts. For people in antiquity, Helike was proof that human pride meant nothing before the earth and the sea. Finally, it links to one of the greatest myths of all, Atlantis. While Atlantis may never have existed, Helike shows why Plato's story resonated. People in Greece had already seen it happen. The lost city of Helike may not have the fame of Atlantis, but it carries more weight. This was no allegory, this was no parable, it was real, a powerful city erased in a single night, its ruins haunting the water for centuries until they were finally buried in silence. When archaeologists uncovered Helike in the 20th century, they didn't just find ruins, they found proof that the line between legend and reality is thin, and that sometimes the myths we tell are just echoes of real disasters we've almost forgotten. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it, and as always, thanks for watching, take care.